Your lack of response becomes the reason they start reflecting. And this reflection, it's uncomfortable because now they have to face what they ignored. Your worth, your presence, your effort, all those things they took for granted, now they have to sit with them alone. The Stoics knew this power well. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. You stopped reacting. You broke the emotional chain, and in doing so, you broke their control. Now you are calm, you are quiet, you are grounded. And while they scramble to figure out how you became so untouchable, you're no longer interested in being touched by their chaos. You've outgrown the noise. This moment is yours. You're not trying to win them back. You're trying to win yourself back. And the irony, that's what pulls them in. But you're already walking in a different direction." Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Let's get real for a second. You didn't just like them, you loved them deeply. You showed up every time they needed you, even when they never really showed up for you. You said yes when you should have said no. You stayed awake to comfort them when you were the one losing sleep. You gave them your heart, unfiltered, unguarded, and they treated it like it was nothing. You were always there, and they knew it. They knew you'd pick up on the first ring, reply within seconds, and apologize even when it wasn't your fault. You tried to prove that your love was enough to make them stay, but it wasn't. Or maybe it was. They just didn't know how to value it. And then they walked away. Maybe it wasn't loud. Maybe they slowly stopped trying. Maybe they acted like you were the problem. But deep inside you felt that shift, that coldness, that rejection. And you broke quietly. The kind of pain no one sees. The kind of ache, The ones overthinking. They're the ones refreshing their notifications. They're the ones wondering how someone who once loved them so loudly can now be so completely still. This is your turning point when you realize that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. You don't owe anyone a performance to prove you're healing. Real healing makes noise in their soul, not yours. Let's take a moment, not for them, but for you. You didn't come this far just to survive heartbreak. You came this far to become someone new, someone stronger, someone clearer, someone who no longer gives their soul to people who only show up when it's convenient. This silence, it wasn't about punishing them. It was about protecting you. Because when you stopped explaining, when you stopped waiting, when you stopped begging to be seen, you finally saw yourself. And now you don't chase, you don't overthink, you don't perform. You simply walk slowly, calmly, powerfully back to your own pee. Let them replay the past. Let them sit in the echo of your absence. That's not your business anymore. Your business is healing. Your business is rising. Your business is choosing yourself like you once chose them. If this video felt like your story, drop this in the comments. My silence is my rebirth. And before you go, subscribe if you're ready to rebuild your identity, not just your heart. Like this video if it reminded you who you really are. Share it with someone who's hurting and needs this truth. You didn't lose them. You found you. And that's the beginning of everything. Smiles and I'm fine texts. But you did something you never thought you'd do. You stopped. You stopped chasing. You stopped overthinking your every word. You stopped fighting for someone who never fought for you. You went silent, not to punish them, but to finally protect yourself. And now that silence is screaming in their world. You're not texting. You're not liking their posts. You're not asking if they're okay. And suddenly they're not okay because your presence was their comfort. And now your absence is their discomfort. They may not say it. Their pride won't let them. But your silence is loud and it's messing with their head. They thought you'd always be there until you weren't. Now they're sitting in the very silence they forced you into. And for the first time, they feel what you felt. If you're with me right now, if this feels like your story, I want you to drop this in the comments. I stayed quiet, and that silence said everything. And remember what say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do. You're not doing this to get them back. You're doing this to get yourself back. And that, my friend, is the real power. Let's go deeper. Stay with me, because what comes next will explain why your silence is shaking them more than your words ever could. Number 1, they rejected you because they thought you'd never leave. They saw your loyalty. They felt how much you cared. But instead of honoring it, they took it for granted. They thought, no matter what I do, they'll stay. That's why they made careless choices. That's why they pushed you away. It wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because they assumed you'd always be there, quietly loving them from the distance. They confused your patience with permission. They thought you didn't have a limit. And when someone thinks you'll never leave, they stopped trying to keep you. That's where they failed. They thought love was guaranteed. They forgot it needs to be earned, protected, respected. You tried. You stayed longer than you should have. You gave second chances that they didn't deserve. You held on through mixed signals, cold silences, and half-hearted effort. And it's not because you were weak. You simply believed in the connection more than they did. But belief isn't enough when you're the only one fighting. And then, without drama or revenge, you walked away. No warning, no final message, just quiet distance. They didn't expect that. They thought you'd reach out again, that you'd break the silence, that you'd check in like you always did. But this time you didn't. Now they feel it, not in a loud way. It hits late at night in the silence where your voice used to be. It hits when they open their phone and see no messages from you. It hits when they're surrounded by people, but still feel your absence like a shadow. That's when they start to realize you weren't just another person. You were peace, you were presence, you were real. And now their ego is bruised because you didn't chase, because you didn't fight to stay where you were never fully welcomed. That kind of silence shakes people. It says, I'm not here to convince you to value me. I'm gone because you didn't. That's why your silence is louder than any argument. It holds power, it holds finality, and most of all, it holds truth. The truth that they didn't expect you to find your strength without them. As Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Let them think whatever they want. You know why you walked away. And deep down now they know too. If this speaks to you, I want you to drop this in the comments. They thought I'd stay, but I chose myself instead. Number 2, your silence isn't revenge, it's self-respect. Let's clear something up. You're not being silent to punish them. This isn't. Some silent treatment game. You didn't vanish to make them feel bad or to prove a point. You went silent because you finally reached a place where your peace became more important than proving your worth to someone who never saw it. At first, they might think you're playing hard to get. They assume you're just being dramatic. They've seen this before. People go quiet hoping for attention. But this silence, this isn't that. This silence is different. It's calm. It's grounded. It doesn't need a response. It speaks for itself because you finally learned that not everything deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your explanation. And most importantly, not everyone deserves access to you after showing you they don't value you. That's not bitterness. That's growth. You stopped reaching out, not because you don't feel, but because you finally decided to feel for yourself first. You stopped texting them, not because you don't miss them, but because you no longer why. runs when things get real. You stop checking their socials, not because you're over it overnight, but because your healing started mattering more than their updates. And guess what? They notice. Maybe not publicly, but your shift, it's loud in their world. Because people always notice when the person who once showed up with full heart stops showing up at all. Your silence doesn't say, "I hate you." It says, "I'm tired. I gave you everything, and now I'm giving that energy back to myself." It messes with them more than anger ever could, because anger means you still care. Anger gives them power, but silence tells them you've let go. That's when their mind starts spiraling. They check their phone more often than they admit. They look for your name in their notifications, but it's not there. They go through old messages trying to figure out when the switch happened, but it doesn't matter anymore. Because the moment you chose peace over proving yourself, the story changed. This is why Stoicism teaches emotional control over reaction. As Seneca said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. You're not reacting anymore. You're rising quietly. And that scares them because they know they no longer have control over your heart. If this feels like your moment, drop this in the comments. My silence is not revenge, it's self-respect. Now, breathe deep. That silence you're holding, it's not empty. It's filled with your strength, and I'll show you how that strength turns into undeniable power. Ready? Let's keep going. Number 3, your silence makes them face what they've been avoiding. Here's the truth most people won't admit. Silence creates space, and space forces reflection. When you stop filling the silence with apologies, explanation, efforts to fix things they broke, they're left with something they've been running from themselves. And that's where the shift begins. While you were busy trying to save the connection, they never had to look in the mirror. Your presence kept them comfortable. Your constant effort gave them an escape from accountability. But now you're gone. No calls, no texts, no reminders of your love. Just empty space where you used to be. And in that emptiness, their mind starts talking. That silence starts echoing. Why did they really leave? Was I too harsh? Did I take them for granted? These questions creep in at night when the distractions stop and noise fades. And the ego, as loud as it used to be, can't answer them honestly. Because the ego never prepares for a day when it loses what it assumed was permanent. They start replaying old conversations, remembering your words, the way you looked at them when you cared, the way you told them anything, but because your silence made them remember everything. And here's what's wild. It's not the silence itself that hurts them. It's what the silence represents. It says, you don't have access to me anymore. It says, you had your chance. It says, I'm not coming back. And that scares them because deep down, they always assumed they could pick up where they left off. That no matter how far they pushed, you'd bounce back like you always did. But now you're just gone. No exit speech, no parting drama, just absence. And it's in this absence that they meet their own reflection. This is where Stoic philosophy truly shows its power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." You chose not to speak because there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been ignored. That silence, it's not weakness, it's clarity. You didn't leave. To be missed. You left because you were finally done being misunderstood. And now they're sitting with it. Every word you didn't send, every call you didn't make, every reaction you held back. It's all saying one thing. You're no longer theirs to ignore. If this hits your heart today, drop this in the comments. My silence forced them to face the truth. Number 4. Your silence makes them question their own worth. Here's something no one really talks about. The people who hurt you often feel untouchable in the moment. When they walk away, they do it with a sense of control. They think they've won, that they made the decision, that they ended it on their terms. And while you're left picking up the pieces, they assume you're still there orbiting around them, emotionally tied, waiting for some kind of closure that they'll never give. But then you go silent, and not the kind of silence that screams, "I'm mad." No. Explaining. You stop reacting. You stop showing up where they expect you to. And that's when a new kind of discomfort begins for them. Self-doubt. They may not admit it, but they start to wonder, why aren't you chasing me? Was I not worth the fight? Did I misjudge how much I mattered to them? That quiet starts to whisper the one thing their ego never wanted to hear. Maybe I wasn't as important to them as I thought. And that eats away at them. They used to feel powerful, knowing they could ignore your messages and still have your attention. But now they check their phone and it's empty. No reaction to their posts, no texts asking, "How have you been?" That silence becomes a mirror. And in that reflection, they begin to question their own desirability, their own importance, their own actions. This is where your growth becomes visible. Because instead of spiraling or trying to win them back, you're healing. You're rebuilding your self-worth. Not loudly, not for show. Ironically, that quiet confidence is what starts to shake their own. The Stoics believed in inner strength, not the kind you flash around to get attention, but the kind that radiates without needing an audience. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." You've stopped needing their approval. You've stopped wanting their love as validation. And that shift makes them look inward. And not everyone is ready for what they find there. They may try to brush it off, pretend they've moved on, but inside they're battling the silence you left behind. Because it's not just silence, it's a question. Was I ever truly enough? And when someone who was once adored by you starts questioning their worth in your absence, that's when they feel the true weight of what they lost. If this feels like your truth, drop this in the comments. They doubted me, but now they doubt themselves. Number 5, your silence reverses the power dynamic. In the beginning, they had all the power. Let's be honest. You were always the one who cared more, the one who checked in first, the one who forgave faster, the one who stayed longer than you should have. And they knew it. Maybe they didn't say it out loud, but they felt it. They felt safe knowing that you were emotionally invested, maybe even emotionally dependent. That's the truth, right? You loved them deeply, maybe too deeply. But now everything has changed. You haven't said a word. No messages. No "I miss you." No watching their stories. Just silence. And that silence, it flipped the entire story. Because now they're the one wondering. Now they're the one checking. Now they're the one thinking, wait, did I lose them completely? They're not used to this version of you. The one who's calm. The one who isn't chasing. The one who isn't begging to be understood. And it shakes them because you've done what's... You reclaimed your emotional space. That's not revenge. That's real power. You see, true power isn't about controlling someone else. It's about controlling yourself. That's what Stoicism teaches. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And now you're living that. You're no longer driven by fear of losing them. You're guided by the peace of finding yourself. Here's what happens when you stop trying to make someone love you. They start noticing what it felt like to be loved by you. Your absence becomes their lesson. And this lesson comes without any lectures. You didn't scream. You didn't post quotes about betrayal. You just stopped giving them your light. And in that darkness, they're now seeing exactly how much brightness you brought into their life. They may try to pretend it's not affecting them. They may post like they're living their best life, but deep down, they feel it. Because It's about balance. The moment you stopped overgiving, the energy shifted. You stopped trying to prove your worth. And now they're trying to remember why they ever thought they could do better than you. So let them feel the distance. Let them wrestle with their pride. Because your silence isn't cruel. It's clean. It doesn't demand anything. It just says, I've changed. And believe me, nothing confuses the person who once thought they had power over you more than seeing you no longer react. Number 6, when you don't reach out, they start reaching in. One of the hardest things you'll ever do is nothing. No message, no explanation, no last attempt, just space. It goes against everything your heart wants, because deep down you still care, but something inside you finally whispered, care for yourself first. And so you chose silence, not as a punishment, but as protection. You were in that quiet, while you were learning to sleep without overthinking. They started doing something they never expected to do. They started thinking for the first time. When you stop reaching out, they start reaching in. At first, they act like they don't care. Maybe they even look relieved, but trust this. The human mind is never comfortable with sudden absence. It creates questions they don't know how to answer. Why did they really stop talking to me? Why aren't they checking in like they used to? Did they finally move on? They never expected silence from you because they confused your heart with weakness. But now they're realizing silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's strength wrapped in restraint. And the more silent you stay, the louder their thoughts get. Because when you were loud with love, they were comfortable. But when you go quiet with dignity, they feel lost. This is the turning point. Your lack of response becomes the reason they start reflecting. And this reflection, it's uncomfortable because now they have to face what they ignored. Your worth, your presence, your effort. All those things they took for granted, now they have to sit with them alone. The Stoics knew this power well. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. You stopped reacting. You broke the emotional chain. And in doing so, you broke their control. Now you are calm, you are quiet, you are grounded. And while they scramble to figure out how you became so untouchable, you're no longer interested in being touched by their chaos. You've outgrown the noise. This moment is yours. You're not trying to win them back. You're trying to win yourself back. And the irony, that's what pulls them in. But you're already walking in a different direction. You protect your peace. You show them that your world no longer revolves around them. That's unsettling for someone who once believed they had control. It makes them question their importance. It makes them wonder if you've truly outgrown them. And that question burns deeper than any breakup ever could. Seneca once said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're living in your truth. You're not fighting for a version of love that disrespected you. You're fighting to be whole again. And that fight, it's silent, but it's strong. They panic because they don't know who you are anymore. You're not responding with hurt. You're responding with distance. You're not reacting emotionally. You're choosing clarity. They can feel it. The version of you that once needed them is gone. And the version of you that replaced it, that person can't be manipulated.